So I think the next panel will be the startups and funding, how to get the money you need to launch your startup. And I think all the panelists are here. Oh, okay. I think one person. Okay, no, Aarti's here right now. And Vini will be the one who will be moderating this panel. So, Vini, whenever you're ready, you can get started.
Hello, everyone. I'm Vini. Can you hear me? Okay. So this is going to be the startup panel, and our speakers are Hina, Dixit, and as you all heard, her keynote speech was very, very nice. I loved it. We also have Aarthi Srinivasan, who is the Vice President of Products at Premier.ai, and Helen Yu, who is the CEO of Tigon Adversity Corporation. So if you guys would all like to give a small introduction to yourselves, that would be great.
Okay, I can start. Hi, I am Aarthi. Nice to meet you all. And congratulations on putting up such a good show today. It's very, very good use of your Saturday. So I'm very impressed. I have been head of products and launched several startup products as well as more mature company products. And I've also been a thought leader in terms of getting cutting edge technology like AI, ML, or blockchain to our customers' hands. And I'm a big proponent of having the voice of customer or your customer input to build these robust products. So I'm excited to share my thoughts on this space because I've worked in a couple of startups in both small and large. And I mean, from the educational background, I have both engineering as well as in business background. So that helped me a little bit.
Thank you so much for telling us about yourself. Would anyone else like to give a small introduction?
Okay. Hello, everyone. I'm Helen Yu, and it's a pleasure being here with all of you here today. I am the founder and CEO of Tigon Advisory. What we do, we provide fractional CXO service to startup. I also spend half of the time working with Fortune brands on influencing marketing at the moment. But prior to that, I started my company 6 years ago. Prior to that, I spent 12 years with Oracle. 7 years combined year with Marketo, with Adobe and Marketo. Did quite a few pivot with my career, started as a financial analyst, accountant, learned how to code early my career. And then later on got into sales and marketing and customer experience side. So having that holistic view of business really critical. So when you're young, explore, right? My experience, explore whatever opportunity in front of you, and then figure out what you're passionate about, and then you really have a fantastic run. But there are tons of things I learned. I'm glad to be here with you today because I sit on the board, a few boards today, 2 AI company board. One is a VC advisor for VC fund, so early stage VC fund. So love to share experience and then learning from other panelists here today as well. Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here today. So I think we can get into a few of the questions. So my first question was kind of an introductory question. What got all of you into this field?
I think I can go first on this one.
Sure.
So I have passion for business, and like I mentioned in my previous, keynote, I grew up while working, with my parents in their family business, and I got a knack for business in general while when I was 8 years old, and I always thought of myself as somebody who can go in and solve like critical problems. And in this role, I think I feel very enabled, and at the same time, like I feel very passionate about solving like harder problems and seeing like what consumer pain points need to be surfaced at the right point, because VCs tend to identify these consumer pain points sooner than other people and encourage solutions to those harder problems out there, right? So I think that enabled me to or encouraged me to move towards venture capital, because I wanted to invest in the right companies, help out consumers in general. There's one company that I'm very proud of investing. It's Sairi Chehal's Mahila Money. It's basically it's an Indian company which kind of gives loans to these female entrepreneurs. These are very small, quick loans that you can take using a mobile app. Within 30 minutes, in 2 to 3 days, you'll have the money that is needed for you to start a small venture. It could be something as simple as buying a sewing machine and starting your own tailoring shop, or it could be something like buying a new laptop where you can go and learn new skill sets, right? So I love this position where I can surface such good companies and encourage them and bring them to the consumers.
Okay, I'll go next. So for me, I grew up in a time where my parents made the decision for me that it has to be either engineering or medicine. And I grew up in India. And so my whole family were doctors, and I did not want to be a doctor because it meant you couldn't have a lot of family dinners together or breakfast. Like your career and profession became number one. So I chose the engineering path. But then when I started, I'm now dating myself. When I started playing video games, the first one was Lion King. I really got interested to do computer graphics. And that's how I came to this country to do my master's in computer graphics. And from that journey, one thing which was common for me was I was always learning new things, and I wanted to learn new things. So I came in for computer graphics, but I ended up being a product manager. And I took on something different than what I studied, because I realized that you needed to do a PhD to work in Pixar labs or something. And I'm talking 98 to 99 timeframe, right? And then that journey, I've never looked back, because I discovered product management was more wider and broader as opposed to narrower in engineering and going deeper into one thing. And it was not even a recognized field at that time when I started my career. UX was just coming in, and product management was more, in many places, done like project management. So I just jumped in, even though I had a job opportunity to be an engineer, and I just have enjoyed every bit of it, because it combines a little bit of business, a little bit of customers, as well as the technology comes in very, very handy. So I would, it's been not a very straightforward journey for me, but I've enjoyed everything I've done and launched products.
Yeah, I was raised by my grandmother in Beijing and came here also to pursue education. When my grandmother passed away, she said, "Stay special, make the world proud." I never knew what I wanted to do, as a matter of fact, even until probably 10 or 15 years ago, until I get myself exposed to the tech world, right? It's majored in finance, being an accountant. That was a very stable job, don't get me wrong, but it was just not ever be the top interest of mine until I was assigned, or I was asked to take the lead to implement a financial planning system, and I gained the opportunity to work with consultants. And then they said, "Helen, why don't you join us? You shouldn't be in a large corporation in crunching the numbers all the time." And so they piqued my interest. I just went in to take the training, got certified. And that's my first step into the tech world. And then I discovered my passion suddenly, right? I found, wow, I really love, coding and having the business background, and then interacting with people to turn something into tangible result. And that led to all the other opportunities. And then Oracle joined Hyperion, and Oracle acquired us 8 years later. And then Oracle, as you know, is a merger acquisition machine. They basically literally talk to people after acquisition, after an hour, they said, why don't you lead a BI consulting practice? I didn't even know what that was at the time, right? Obviously, I had a analytical background, and then they see something in me that I did not even know myself. So, when opportunity knocks on the door, and then take that, right? And then, so I was very lucky to work with fantastic leaders and mentors early in my career as well. I learned so much from them. And then they see things in me when I did not realize I had that in myself along the way. And then, we had a successful run. I joined Adobe very early stage when they were not even though they were known as a creative leader. We built a digital marketing brand, working with other managers and leaders. And then Marketo was the door opener for me to get into the startup world. And that's being said, that journey led to unconventional career for me. And then it's also, when Marketo sold to Vista Equity $1.87 billion, that gave me the financial freedom to start my own company. And then, I was also very lucky, as soon as I start my company, I get to the AI world, right? Got to work with AI startup for an entire year to help them build out their go-to-market, the product market fit, and deploy AI at global bank. And so that's being said, opportunity sometimes, just show up, or sometimes, it just, you don't know, never know when that's going to happen. My advice to you is to seize that moment when it comes to you, even though you may not feel like you're ready, go for it. And then you can learn along the way and then excel, right? Improve and excel, but always build that network. I always have people tap on my shoulders to say, hey, Helen, there's an opportunity. Would you consider this? If you're extremely good, Hina talked about, if you're extremely good at what you do, always opportunity will come at you, rather than you have to be worried about opportunity, especially early stage of your career.
Thank you so much for sharing that with us. I definitely agree with what you said about opportunity and really seizing it when you have it, because that's kind of one of the things that can really kickstart your career and being successful. So Helen, would you like to tell us a bit more about the mission and vision of your company?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the mission of my company is to, originally when I started, was to help the company startups to bridge that disconnect, right? I would call 5 disconnect as companies going through the growth stage. The first one is from idea to product. Second one is from product to market. Third one, market to scale. As you go through these 3 stages, phase of growth, you're going to run into disconnect. The first one is your product market fit disconnect. Because as a founder, we have to figure out, why we started the company, what problem are we solving? You have to understand what, where that is. That's really define your product, right? The solution. So to me, is like, if I can help founder, or I want to be a multiplier, multiply other people's joy, knowledge, and prosperity. So that's really the mission. And now we expanded to work with Fortune brand as well. So really growth acceleration and value creation, that's what we focus on today. So that's how we evolve. I mean, you always pivot and evolve as you go along.
Sounds good. Thank you so much. So I had another question. So Aarthi, you did tell that you worked on a few different startup products and things like that. Could you tell us a little bit more about that? Some of the projects and products that you did work on.
Yeah, most of the last 10 years of my product have been dedicated to AI and ML. Even if it's with big companies, like retail companies like Target or Amazon, it's been in incubation units. So I always pick teams where they have like small and nimble goals, and their innovation centers, which are funded by the larger umbrella, to go and discover what's the gap in the market, what are customers seeking, and then try to build the product from 0 to 1, and eventually work with teams to scale it from 1 to many or 1 to N. Some of the products I've worked on are the ML platforms, for example, a personalization platform at Target, where we try to combine each users' data to what potential things that they're going to predict and buy, or promotions which make sense to them, rather than doing a generic one-size-fits-all kind of product. Then at AWS, it gets a little technical, but it's a product called SageMaker. And then there is EC2, which is like cloud compute. We were looking for ways where customers who are spending millions of dollars using AI and ML workloads, how can they save money and become more efficient, so that their data comes in fast, their models perform faster, it's compressed, and the inference is done faster. So it's hardware and software optimization, and looking at something where you don't need to know all the ML operations to launch something on production. So you can go to something called autopilot in SageMaker, which allows you, like, let's say you want to look at a bunch of survey feedback from this conference, and you want to know which is positive, which is negative, which is neutral. If there were thousands of people attending this, you would be spending hours doing it. Whereas if you are able to upload that data in a tabular format into this platform, you can pick a model which does classification of your data using natural language, and you don't need to know anything about that model. All you need to do is just say, okay, I need to solve this problem, and click on it, and it automatically gives you the output, and you have an API ready in case you want to use it as in your own UI interface, right? So things like that. In the startup, I launched 2 products called Command and Delta, and these are products which use large language models as well as NLP to monitor what is happening in social media, what's happening in the news. So use cases, let's say a president is going to visit some country in Africa. So their security detail needs to know what's going on there, what are the type of tweets which happen there, and local to not just tweet application, but there are so many local chat applications. So you need to know like what's going on there and what's the news, and create a summary within few hours so you can protect the safety, you can be prepared for that. By using our product, for example, we were able to predict that the storming of the Capitol, which happened on January 6th, was going to happen 2 months or like 2 weeks before that, because we saw a lot of activity in the dark web, which generally, hopefully none of you go there, but it's kind of things which happen under the surface of the internet. We only use 10 to 15% of the internet. There's a lot of danger below that. And how do you monitor and guarantee democracy and safety? And also know the simple use case of how do you know if something which is posted is a troll or not, troll or not, it's fake news or real news. So that type of was real-time analysis. And then the other product was more, if I wanted to do this at enterprise scale, but I have my own data, images, audio, video, how do I do it? So that was another product we launched as well.
Thank you so much for telling us about that. That seems very interesting. So the next question is for Hina, and I know that you're mostly into like the investing side of this industry. So the question is, what do you think are some of the best practices for founders to reach potential investors in seed stage or Series A or Series B?
I think there's no fixed given template on when you should reach out to investors when you're working on raising funds, right? Like, I think it's essential, however, to have like a concrete plan for your, like, for your business setup, right? Most of the founders should at least be addressing a very, like, important consumer pain point. And I think if you're solving a very essential, like, pain point which has like a decent total addressable market size, then that is worth like looking at, right? So thinking from VC perspective, I think it is important for you to have like, first of all, have some diligence at your work, figure out what your, total addressable market size is, figure out what consumer pain points you are like, addressing, have like at least a minimal viable product out there, or at least like some white paper or research paper, like, that can back up that you can build a particular solution as well, like, that should be there along with enough experience in that field of the solution creation. So whenever like somebody's trying to reach out, they need to like, get in touch with us using some of these portals. Like you can use LinkedIn, you can use Twitter, you can like, just email or reach out to them during events as well with your pitch deck. The pitch deck should have like a few essential elements, like your product, what is your product, what problem it's solving, what is the competitive analysis, like, how does your product compare with other incumbents out there, and why is your product or solution better than them. There has to be that analysis. Then you need to be able to like write and talk very succinctly about the innovation that you have done, what is new there, how would you ensure like, you're not disambiguated by any of these incumbents. Then I think it's really important to talk about the team, have like, give the VCs enough confidence that they can actually like, invest in the right team, and this team can like, it has a good mix of like technology, like, technology skills, financial or operational or business skills as well. So I think it could be a one founder company, it could be 2 or 3, like number doesn't matter, like as long as you can show that you have some experience, like, or you are the right fit for taking up this challenge and figuring out the solution to the challenge. So, and then the other thing is like, it's important to have like some brief understanding of your financial requirement when you're reaching out to VCs. Like, how much do you want to raise? And this cannot be an abrupt number that, hey, like up in the air, everybody's raising 3, so I want to raise 3. It should be more concrete, like, okay, this is the amount of compute, like, I would need, so I need this much money. These are the number of people I want to hire. And here are the like different resources where I'll be, investing the money. Plus you should have like a milestone mapping, like you should have a timeline plan out there, right? Where you can say, hey, like, these are like, different milestones that we aim to, achieve in next 2 to 3 like years, and this is where we eventually see like, the product will come out, and then like, this is where like, the product will start making money or like will break even. So having some concrete like information and doing a proper business analysis before you come to us can be crucial too.
Yeah, for sure. And so most of what you're saying is kind of like you said, having that concrete almost evidence or research or something to back up your idea. So do you think that it should be a requirement, or it's heavily suggested that founders should have a prototype or a customer already using the product to get funding from potential investors?
I think it's important to have a minimal viable product in all sense, at least like have a very concrete understanding that there is a proof of concept that exists and now we are going to build on it. But then that's more like a pre-seed round, right? Like most of the CVCs do not like invest in pre-seed stage. They mostly tend to invest in seed stage. Some even like start with Series A and onwards. At Microsoft, we are trying to change that. We are trying to like get in more earlier, which is like seed stage. For us specifically, like, I would like to see at least like a minimal viable product out there and some concrete like research work that has been published, and great expertise from the team in that particular like, topic. Like, for example, if it's on device LLMs, or is it like, security or safe AI, like, there has to be some shown or pre-existing work that you have done that shows that, okay, like you are a subject matter expert.
Yeah, I'd like to add a couple of key points to Hina as well, right? If you talk about best practice of founders to reach potential investor, I think there are a couple of things. Number one, you have to become a fundable entrepreneur, what that really means, right? There are 150 millions of startups in the world globally. 50 million new startups emerge every year. So you have to find a way to jump out of the page why they would invest in you, your personal brand, who you are, why you start your business, and unique value of your solution is so critical for you to articulate, right? And then as Hina's talk about, you got to understand the market landscape, the competitive landscape. And then the secondly, you have to think from the VC perspective and understand the key value inflection points from their perspective, what that means as you go through each stage, how they value or evaluate a company. So, do some due diligence, because not every VC might be a good fit for you. Some only invest in certain industries, and some, if they already invested in your competitor, they will not invest in you, right? That's a key point. But you can always find their competitor to go after their competitor VC. And then build a strong network. When you start reaching out to people, the moment you need them is too late, right? Build that network early, and with VCs, other successful funders and mentors and advisors, and be strategic and purposeful. It's very, very important. And then stay curious, right? Learning about the world, what's really what's the perceived value for your solution, how you articulate that to the pervasive use of that is very critical.
Yeah, I would just add, oh, sorry, Shruti, go ahead.
Oh, no worries. Sorry, I'm Shruti. I'm the founder of Reincarnate, and we are right now in the pre-seed stage, and have chatted with 60, 70 VCs wanting an MVP and a repeatable business model. So yes, but I think that's what we know, right? You need to have a profitable business in order to get more funding for seed stage. But how do you fund an idea, right? How do you go from 0 to 1? There are different avenues, right? Let's say if you are a student in a university, you can apply for grants. You can convert your research into a product, right? You can ask for family angel investors to support your idea, right? You can actually build something, build a demo, go to customers and get the customers to pay for your idea, right? Or you could do some consulting on the side. It may be tangential to your product, but it gives you some resource to bring it back to your product. So until you have a product market fit, things are hard if you have to get to a VC, right? But it's like the paths that you have to cross to get there. There are some fellowships available in the pre-seed stage. Happy to talk about it. You have IDEA, and you have like SPC, Y Combinator, Sequoia having their pre-seed fellowships. But it still requires demonstrating value, demonstrating team. So yeah, that's all I had to chat.
Oh, no, thanks, Shruti. Actually, I thought you were a student here, so that's why I was like, why didn't they introduce Shruti here? A friend, so good. Glad you spoke up. I would add from the other side, right? I 100% agree with all the speakers here. I worked in startups where they got funded too early or grew too early without a product at all. So Series B, Series D, because money was flowing in at that time. And you have to have an understanding of where the market is going as well. Because the valuations, for example, which happened when this money was flowing, was all paper in terms of 50x. And what I mean by that is, like, let's say I had 5 million revenue in my startup that was valued at 100 times that or 50 times that, right? And that is not sustainable right now. And that's why there are about 300,000 layoffs which are happening in the Valley right now, right? And so I feel like when you are starting a startup, you hear all the success stories. Your number one job is to find that customer problem and not be totally tied to it in case it's not working. Because many times founders go down the path of like, I know it's going to work. I know this is working. but you have to be able to pivot it, get your crowdsourced funding or family funding, and quickly experiment to get at least your first 10 to 100 customers who love your product, who get up every day and who just can't be without that. Once you have that, VCs will love your metrics. They will pitch it and they'll see the reality in your product. Otherwise, it's just they investing in you as a person. Like it's happened in WeWork, it's happened in other companies where you rely on something and you get a lot of money because for that person's intellectual ability, but unless they know to operationalize that ability into a reality, that can't be a scalable company.
Yeah, thank you so much to everyone for talking. I think that was a really good discussion on that topic. So the next question is kind of open-ended, so I think everyone could give in their answer to it. So what are some of the biggest challenges that you guys have faced in this industry or with your startup in specific? And kind of what did you do to get out of that challenge? Anyone could go first.
I think I can continue with what I was saying, right? Like, so I've been in startups where there was no product market fit and they were like Series C or D with 200 million funding, but operating like a Series A, trying to find an experiment. And it's very difficult to find that out from outside unless you go inside, because you have very patented technology, like Hina was talking about defensible technology, but people are not paying money for the technology. Like even LLMs right now, there's so many startups, but how many of them are really making money and growing with customers, right? Customer engagement. So I think the sooner you get to breaking that product market fit or like 1 million ARR every year in your first couple of like 6 months, 1 year, 2 years, like however fast it takes that, you have to sustain and then double down on that. It is a gut feeling. Sometimes it's a market direction. So you need to know when to double down and when to divest on things. So I have had to make decisions where there were tens of projects which were called products and said, no, we're going to cut this, but double down on these things and focus on a different sector, the government sector, for example. Commercial is not working for us, so we need to do the government sector because that's where our moat is or our protection is, so that other people cannot come into that space because of our security, because of our compliance, whatever it is. So that's the kind of navigation I've had to do time and again. And then the second kind of navigation is there's a lot of research technology. So taking that and finding which one is viable to make a product and why should I make a product? Like, does the customer care whether your technology is based on Amazon cloud or Google cloud, or what is that is differentiated to them that your startup can provide? That is also an important one. Research to reality. Those are the two things that I help navigate.
Yeah, I think as a startup, as you go through different stages, your challenge also evolve, right? And as I said earlier, if you move, let's say you're in the idea to product phase, that's the biggest challenge, to figure out the minimum viable product, right? What that solution, what problem you're trying to solve there, and then anyone else solving the same problem. And then that's where you're going to focus as you move to product to market. That's where you're gonna, the first phase, you're trying to get the early adopters, and then you move to product market. That's where you have to figure out minimum viable repeatability, right? As Arthur said, you can get 10 customers, but how can you get 100 customers similar in that similar use case? Because if you have 100 customers all different, that would take so much more time and energy to obtain them. If it's a repeatable process, repeatable adoption, or repeatable go-to-market, that make it much easier to market. And then you shift to market to scale. As you do that, that might be involved in more distribution channel of the sales. And you have to figure out how do you align with big players like Microsoft, Google, or Amazon out there, right? So because that will help you to go to market faster and scale. Maybe you're in the stage where you want to IPO that stage. So people has always been a critical factor. As a founder, sometimes finding the right people at the right time is really critical. It's hard, right, as a founder, because we're, especially when you're early stage, you can't afford for the best people you want to hire. And what you're going to do, you have to figure out how you find mentors and advisors along the way, and then to bootstrap your business. So it's very critical to figure out what stage you are in. And then also, I personally did not understand VC world as much as I do now, right? So you need to really dig in, understand how they do. Just reach out to one of them to say, how do you evaluate companies, right? What are the process you go through? Really go deeper about, what are the elements they're looking at. VCs are different. There's no size that one size fits all. So do some due diligence and then understand if their thesis, investment thesis is aligned with your personal value or brand. And that's also very critical. And then as you go through, there are tons of learning, right? Always reach out to people, read or learn, and then constant learning opportunities out there. And then don't worry about reaching out to people and learn constantly.
Yeah, I'll also add a little bit there. As a founder, at any stage, normally the problems are people-related problems. You're convincing your customers, investors, your team to be with you, to align on the same vision, right? To work together. Technical problems, like unless you're, building something really magnificent, right? Technical problems are solvable. Maybe not in 3 months, in a year. Technical problems are solvable. So knowing how to work together and convincing people, persuading people is a very important skill set. Another important skill set is resilience. You will hear hundreds of no's, from everybody. Sometimes you'll be humiliated, but I don't think you should, like, if you're a founder or if you have, a vision to get something out there, you shouldn't let that deter you. That's really important for anything that you do. You need to be flexible, but you also need to be resilient. Yeah.
Thank you so much for sharing. And so Shruti, could you tell us a bit more about what inspired you to create a startup?
So I have been motivated by innovation and by solving problems. So I started my career as a researcher, and I was motivated by science and understanding the world. The last 8 to 9 years, I've been working in machine learning. I was at IBM, Google X, and started 2 AI companies before. In all the cases, it was, there is this opportunity, there's a problem, and we can create something that does not exist. The different kinds of founders, right? There are operators, there are people who are visionaries, and I am motivated in the early stages. The reason I started my present company, Reincarnate, is because I saw a big gap between, you had AI doing materials design, you had AI doing chip design, but when you're talking about sustainable design, end to end, you require a holistic picture. That is again a very people's problem, which can be translated to a data problem, and that can be accelerated by AI. So you have a problem and you have a technology, you have the right conditions. Well, we started before the hype, but at least people started to think about it, and that's what led to Reincarnate. So that's why I started it.
Thank you so much for sharing. So the next question is, what were some of the biggest challenges you faced when building your startup? So I think anyone can start. Shruti, if you'd like, you could start as well.
Like I said, the biggest problems are people problems, right? The first problem when you start is finding a co-founder. You have to have the right team, convincing people to join you. It has to be complementary, right? The second is raising money, talking to people, building the product. And this is not specific to this particular startup, but again, once you have a product, iterating it with the customer, going from a product to, again, scaling it. And I think it has been mentioned quite a bit in terms of pivoting and knowing when to change. I think a lot of startups fail or become, or they get into a zombie mode when they stick to their original idea. Let me give you an example. So we were doing personalized spatial audio in my last startup, Embody, right? So what we were building a technology where people could take a picture of their ear and get an immersive 3D audio experience, right? And we were trying to do that for music and gaming. And when we started talking to companies, to the big name companies, Sony, Apple, and whatnot, integrating that technology became really hard, right? So the natural solution was, let's go to the creators because that's an easy way in, right? But that's a very, very niche market, and that can easily lead to that's a commercial death, right? But what we really had as we had launched out this product was that we had built out one of the largest biometric databases of ears. So like the facial features, the ear is a biometric identity, and that could have been monetized, right? So we didn't do that, right? So that's an example of not weighing your bets correctly. But you learn from those experiences, and again, challenges evolve, so yeah, that's about it.
Yeah, definitely. And so going back more to the side of investors and funding, Hina, how big of a factor do you think that location can be when trying to find an investor as a founder?
I don't think location should be a big challenge. However, like we have seen recent AI bubbles specifically in San Francisco area, right? Like VCs have been very active in Cerebral Valley, Hayes Valley, right? Like in general. But at the same time, VCs are also very conscious of global markets and globalization in general. So we have seen some amazing startups coming off Nordic region, India, as a matter of fact, right? Like there are recent good AI startups coming out of Japan. So I've been investing all over the world, I would say, even Vietnam, India, China. China has been a bit hard these days, like just because of the nuances in general that's going on. Tel Aviv is another area where, like, a lot of like good startups come up, but then again, like, there are certain nuances where it could be a slightly difficult to invest there, but at the same time, like, most VCs tend to invest globally, and it's more important to make sure that when you're reaching out to VCs like from US or like from a specific country, you have a plan to expand to that region in some way, or have like some idea why that location or why that strategic location means to you, right? Like, and set up like a Delaware Corp or some Corp like within US. If suppose like you have a startup in India and then you want to raise like here, then maybe you should set up a Delaware Corp. That makes the operation easy in general. So I don't think location matters a lot because of this, but then for operational reasons, it makes sense to have a Delaware Corp in US in general. Yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely add a couple points here. A successful startup needs to be in a place that offers access to customers, research and talent, right? If you were in a highly condensed talent area, that would be easier for you to hire people. Also needs to be an area that can support financially and legally. Can you guys still hear me? I feel like Hina froze. Hello?
I can hear you. Yeah.
Okay. And then, their Bay Area absolutely is top, right? And where the VC funds, because just in first half of 2023, Bay Area accounted for approximately half of VC funding geared toward AI in the United States. alone. That's $2.85 billion. And then according to Startup USA, San Francisco, New York, San Jose, Boston, LA, San Diego, Seattle are all top startup cities in US. But then there's globally, there's London, Berlin, Tel Aviv, Bangalore, Delhi, Beijing, Shanghai, and Hangzhou also ranked really high. So depends on where you are, you have to take tax into consideration as well as founder, because it's very important for you to know the nuances. If you decide to set up a company in New York, be mindful about the tax implication. That's why a lot of companies set up in Delaware or some other places more tax friendly. So just to really do some research and understand what the implication might be based on the location.
Yeah, and so kind of how you were talking about how influential the Bay Area is in this kind of industry, we could almost even call the Bay Area as the VC capital of the world. So what do you think about founders who are thinking about maybe moving to the Bay Area to raise money from investors who are located there?
I personally think that it's really helpful for them to interact with VC on a regular basis, and regardless of where they live, right? It's just interacting. You don't have to be ready for the fundraising to reach out to VCs, and reaching out to them to understand what's top of mind and their investment thesis, and then just to really seed your opportunity to them, right? And then plant the seed there would be very helpful. The interaction really is meaningful. I'm still a believer in human interaction, right? You can talk everything digitally today, but nothing beats to have a coffee with the VCs just to chat about what's hot in the market and what they like. And you'd be surprised, they love to hear from you as well as a founder, because they're out there also constantly looking for opportunities. It'd be really good for them to learn so much more about what's in the market, what other innovative ideas that you may have. So that's being said, you don't have to move right away. I would say do some due diligence, right? It can be really costly to live in the Bay Area as much, as you probably don't know. And then but when you're young, explore, right? Just to take the risk, explore the opportunity. And it's most importantly is to find out the right VCs at the right stage of your growth, and to interact with them on a regular basis. And then most importantly, a lot of times you don't have direct access to them, but talk to people who have access to them, and then always they will do the introduction. But being prepared and before you really expose yourself to them, because that first impression is really critical.
For sure. And Shruti, did you have something to add onto that topic?
Yeah, I would say, I think I grew up in India. I studied in the UK. And in that 10-mile radius, there was a large consolidation of talent. But I also worked in Kenya, where surprisingly talent existed, and then I came to the Bay Area. I would say, I think from a funding perspective, Bay Area is great. But when you are actually looking for problems, you should think globally. You cannot be living in the Bay Area all the time, because you'll have a bubble around you. It's really important to know the real problems, whether your market could be Japan, China, India, Africa, right? I have known founders who graduated from MIT and then moved to Nairobi, Kenya to set up their business, right? Because that made sense for them, right? They had the funding maybe from the US, but they moved to solve the particular problem. So I think that decision making, like that being close to your market is probably a factor involved as well when you're setting up your startup.
Thank you so much for sharing. And so going back to another type of generalized question, Aarthi, you did say like you have participated in many different projects and products. So personally, what did you find really helped to prioritize and manage different tasks?
Yeah, that's a $1 million question, right? So I think prioritization is something that all leaders need to have. I mean, as I think women leaders, we are constantly prioritizing between taking care of our kids, pets, and work. And now, like with equity, men are hopefully doing more of that as well. So it's not all on the women. So I would say in terms of prioritization, it also depends on which phase of your journey that the startup is on. So like very early on, if it is in experimentation, I don't want to prioritize. I want to run as many experiments as I can within a week. And every experiment, think about it as having a scorecard or a single one pager saying, who am I solving it for? What am I solving? What is the market potential of this? How much addressable market is there, and how much of the share can I get if this grows big, right? As a joke I mean, this is actually a neighbor of mine joined Google very early on, and he was enticed to join Google by saying we will be the best in the small medium business for ads. That's how they were. They didn't realize their potential at that time. And so I'm just saying that you have ideas, have the potential hypothesis of how much it can make, and so you test as much when you're really early. When you're employing more than 10 people, you have to pay their salaries, and if you're taking money from VCs, every quarter you have a board meeting and you have to show them what you're doing with the money which you took, right? And so you got to tell them your revenue is growing, or you're having some kind of cycle, like a list of potential customers that you have already looking at, and in terms of prototyping your product with, right? So they want to know that, because you can't go over and over and like take $10 million and be like, oh, I have 20 people, but we haven't done anything. They're researching. So you need to have those goals, which almost like the best companies, or how I've run my teams, are I take the board deck of what priorities or KPIs I have, and then whether it's revenue or growth or marketing, and then bubble it down into objectives, customer objectives, that then different teams can run around and execute on that and report against that. And when they do that, you're prioritizing based on which one will move the needle most. Like there was a project, for example, on cost cutting. So reducing funding was tight, and so we had to cut costs. So I looked at all the workloads in EC2, and we were able to reduce costs by 40% within like a quarter. So depending on the situation, you'll do it, but you have an uber mission of what you're trying to accomplish, and you have processes which help you focus on the best audacious goals that will move the needle further, and you can report on that either through marketing or funding or revenue and so on. So and that is on what you're going to optimize is something that you need to know for each phase of your business.
Thank you so much for sharing. As you said, I think that is one question that a lot of people have, be it like personal life or career, type of figuring out what to prioritize and how to manage that is definitely something that I think can be very hard. And thank you for your tips on that. So I kind of have a concluding question that I think everyone can go around and answer. What advice would you give to those who are looking to make their own startup, or founders who are trying to look for investors? So any advice in general?
I'll start. I would really start with a to be, right? Who do you want to be? And use the 3-word strategy, right? What is the 3 words you want your brand, if you're going to start a company, to stand for? If you're not starting a company, what do you want your personal brand to stand for? And then being prepared, persistent, and patient. That's very important. I actually laid it out very clearly in my book, Ascend Your Startup, right? Asking the questions, right? The 26 questions you got to ask as a founder as you grow and along the way, because, learning what strategic questions to ask is more important than having the answers all the time, no matter what you do. in your career. But staying curious and explore the curiosity. When you're young, go explore the world. As I think someone mentioned earlier, don't just narrow focus in Silicon Valley, because that's a bubble, right? You go take yourself outside to see the world and meet people, learn about what's important, what matters outside of Silicon Valley. And then you'll see you'll be more creative. You'll come back with more fulfilled ideas in terms of what product and company solution you're going to build to change the world.
Yeah, I think that I 100% agree with that, Helen. Very well put. I would put it as this, right? First and foremost, why do you want to start that startup? Like, what are you trying to do? Because many times you're in Silicon Valley, it's like peer pressure. You're just like, oh, I need to be an entrepreneur and founder. But do you really have to be? Is that what your personality and your strengths are? Can you be like, once somebody asked me in an interview, like, I have a chicken coop at home, and this person who was trying to hire me asked, would you be able to kill one of your chickens by breaking its head, right? And I'm like, I don't know, I've never thought about this, and I don't think as a person that's my thing. So like, you got to be honest to yourself and do a strength and opportunity assessment, and why you need the startup. And the answer cannot be too many times. It's like, I want to make money, and I want to be the next Elon Musk or Mark. And just to dwell on that, right? Elon Musk was almost about to lose his SpaceX. He had 2 weeks of funding when he got the NASA deal. So that's the kind of pressure that guy lives in. And if you are willing to live with that, then yes, absolutely. And this is the best time to do it, because you probably don't have like 401ks and children and mortgage and all that. So it's the best time to go experiment and fail. But you do it for something which you are passionate about. Like, I try to start a company where I was using blockchain for gun tracing after the fact. It's a bipartisan solution, and it's not preventing gun violence, but it's reducing taxpayers' value to do that. And then we can talk about it another day. But so find whether it is literacy, whether it's senior living, whether it's like something which you're passionate about, that you want to solve the world's problems. Tesla was founded to solve, like, they essentially said, like, I want to solve oil problems in the world. And that went to now a car company, right? So it was started with the battery pack and all that. So just figure out why you want to do it. Second one, I would say, be persistent, like Helen was saying, and Shruti was also telling you, like, there are going to be tough times. All the stories you hear about the successful things are after they've made it big. They're not telling you what they compromised in their life. So just make sure that you are aware of what you're going to miss out. But you're young, and so you should be willing to take that 18-hour work days or 20-hour or lack of sleep and so on. So that's something which is important, because you believe in it so much. And then in terms of reaching for funding, if you can generate a revenue stream as much as possible, do that before you go and seek out venture funding. I'm not saying in a way that venture funding is bad, but it's just adding more people to your decision pools and ideations and balancing all these things. So if you have at least a robust product market fit, then you can go bigger, and then people want you. It's like a job, right? You have one job already, you have proven yourself, then everybody wants to hire you. Whereas you're going and knocking on their doors and you're like, oh, I can do it, I can do it. Instead, take that energy and invest in, like, how can you grow your company?
Thank you so much for sharing. Shruti, do you have any advice that you would like to give us?
Yeah, I think the advice that the other panelists gave is right on. I think everybody is stressing on diversity of experiences, right? And focusing on creating value, I think a lot of times you will be distracted by like when you speak to the investors, sometimes you speak to other people as well. You can get distracted by, oh, let's build this because this has a larger market. I think as a founder, if that does not resonate with you, it's that endeavor is likely to fail because you as a founder build something to solve a particular problem. And I would say that the word ROI in terms of money in or money out applies to the particular problem as well. Like you need to see return on investment, you need to see impact in whatever you do. If that is done, if that is taken care of, everything else is secondary, it will just follow on. So yeah, as long as you're honest to solving a particular problem, and that problem has a measurable impact, everything else will just be easy.
I think on the contrary, like I kind of like have not such a conservative thought. I feel like you guys are so young. You should, you should try more things. When you're younger, it's okay to fail several times and nobody's gonna judge you. You do not have a lot of things at stake. Like you don't have mortgage, you don't have kids you need to pay fees for. Right. So make those mistakes. Even if like you cannot get everything sorted out 100%, still go for it. Even if you have a dream, you'll like, you should explore it. You'll learn something out of it. Even if it means that, you might feel that you lost a good offer from say Apple, Google, or whatever while you were trying to set up your startup. But hey, those offers can come again, because all they require is just for you to have experience, and no experience can count or be as valuable as startup experience, honestly. So take those risks. You do not have a lot of liabilities initially, so you're not like taking care of things. You do not have to pay enormous like car bills and so many things. So I think I would definitely encourage like more female founders to come in and do their thing, and make sure that they start early, rather than thinking that they'll gain more experience in corporate. Like it's always there, but do the startup. Like I would rather encourage you to do the startup when you are early on in, just post your grad school, or like just finishing up your PhD. Like create your startup out of your PhD research work or your thesis work in masters, or do something valuable during your undergrad, or pick up like such internship and projects like where you can grow out of that internship in a way where you go and learn and do a very unique project, which is a technology of future, and try creating something new, and then span that out like a startup in the future. So make those mistakes. I would totally say that you will lose a lot, but it's just like, if you think you're losing friends feel you're not having enough time for them, then I would be honest, those are not your real friends. Real friends do accept, and they kind of like do not judge you if you're too busy, like focusing on your dream. They will always support you. Even if you meet them like say a year from now, you give your best friend a phone call, he should still be, or he or she should still be warm enough and still be your best friend, and ask you and support you and love you equally. So don't feel obligated by these social nuances. Just go do your thing, and that's what I believe in, and that's what I'll encourage you guys to do.
Thank you so much. Thank you to all of you. All of the advice and information was very, very helpful. And I really appreciate it. And I'm sure a lot of the others watching as well really appreciate it. And that concludes the startup panel. Thank you so much for taking the time to be here.
Thank you for organizing. It was really
It's a
good.
pleasure. Thank you.
It was a pleasure here as well.
Yeah, thank you to all the speakers for speaking at the panel today. I think I found this panel very informative because it had like all the perspectives given for like startup. So yeah, thank you for speaking all at the panel, and thank you, Vini, for moderating the startup panel as well. Now I